Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Melvin Way. This is a long video about the 2019 Superbloom featuring Lake Elsinore. I didn't get to get a close look the first weekend I tried to go. I was along the 15 freeway, northbound and southbound, and I couldn't get anywhere near Walker Canyon and where all the people were. There were 100,000 visitors on the first weekend I tried going, cramming into an inland Empire City of roughly 70,000. I'd only been in Lake Elsinore maybe once driving through, probably around sunset. But for a 2-week span in about March 2019, I considered it to be the most beautiful place in my known world. I live not too far away in North County, San Diego, and as you can see, there are so many of these beautiful California poppies. They're called by several different names. California poppy is one, golden poppy, I've heard of golden orange poppies, California sunlight and cup of gold. Those are very interesting names, but I haven't seen the media or heard anyone or seen anyone use those names. It's a species of flowering plant in the Papaveraceae family, native to the United States and Mexico. It covers a lot more territory than just California. It says on Wikipedia it's an ornamental plant flowering in summer, but I don't think that really happens here because Southern California tends to be very dry. It has a Mediterranean climate, so in the winter of 2019 we saw a lot of rain, an abnormal amount of rain, and even until April when this video was made I still saw some showers, although the Superbloom seems to be over for most of Southern California. So this footage was taken roughly a week after my first attempt to go and was unsuccessful to get anywhere close to Walker Canyon. This was in a secluded spot with maybe just around 30 people at any given time. Maybe there were just 15 cars. So yeah, I drove on a dirt road past an industrial zone with some scrap yards and found this nice little gem. You could see there was a caterpillar on one of these cups of gold, if you want to call them that, and this flower is nearly embedded in the weeds. So the plant itself is very unremarkable in that you won't really notice it. It just looks like a weed, but it covers the entire hillsides here, and I think there was a fire here a long time ago that cleared a lot of the larger plants in existing growth. So the California poppy is one of these natural wild weeds that just took over the entire hillside here. So I've noticed that the places with the best Superbloom, such as this one, have a general lack of shrubs and trees. So they're mostly marginal habitats, I would say. And as you can see, there's not really any trees here, so that's why you can have such an amazing Superbloom. You do have some invasives such as wild mustard, which has all those tall, spindly inflorescences that you can see on the top of this footage right here with the tiny yellow flowers. I'm not a big fan of that, but luckily the California poppy is the dominant plant life form here, and it's a great thing because they're so beautiful, the flowers, and I could look at these all day. I was standing out there for hours and my morale just soared, and I was really happy for the rest of the day. I'm really glad I came out here to see these California poppies. I had never really consciously known about the existence of these flowers. Maybe I had seen some next to the freeways, but it's been a really long time since we've had a Superbloom, and that Superblooms have been so prominent in the media because we just had many years of what some people consider to be a super drought, which was basically subpar levels of rain going back many years. There are some people who considered the drought to have been a severe drought on the magnitude of 500 years, but I don't really think that's the case. I think there's a lot of room for debate there because there was one place I went to in the mountains. There was a mine shaft, a gold mine shaft I went to in East County, San Diego, and I think a century ago it got 100-something inches of rain. That definitely would have broken the drought. But anyway, it's just a very beautiful sight. The scale is breathtaking. In fact, I think places with hills like this giant hill range, I wouldn't quite call it a mountain range, in Lake Elsinore, really accentuate the beauty of a Superbloom, because I've seen pictures on really flat ground of the Superblooms going on right now in Carrizo Plains National Monument and Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve, I believe. They basically have really flat terrain, so while it can be amazing and dazzling, and I know Carrizo Monument seems to have some hills and mountains as well in the background. If everything is flat, then it's not as impressive as what you're looking at right here. And this isn't even the full extent of the Superbloom, because I arrived about 1 week late. I saw a picture taken from a low-flying airplane on social media of this entire hill range east of the 15 in Lake Elsinore, and it was just amazing that almost the entire mountain range was, hill range was orange like this. So right now you're looking at a lot of flowers, but just a week ago there were a lot more, and it's really amazing. There are still many that are blooming. Based on some of the footage that you've already seen, they do have these little pink discs. That's basically the base of the flower, and if you see a green sort of encapsulated cone coming out of it like you see in the center there, that's got all these 4 beautiful flower petals wrapped inside. So I think it's pretty rare to see a wild little weed like this have such a big beautiful flower. I know they do occur in the desert. I've seen some species. I'm learning a lot more about wildflowers these days, since the Superbloom of 19 has really captured my interest and really captivated my weekends. So this was a really magical experience. I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's a nature lover. I think almost anyone has some interest in just a giant bloom like this. It's really beautiful, and you can see little dabs of purple and other species. There were a lot of tiny little white flowers, but the California poppy and its giant petals are really what steal the show around here and really put Lake Elsinore on the map in March of 2019. Some media outlets have dubbed this the Poppy Apocalypse, based on the number of visitors outnumbering the city's residents on weekends with all the traffic and chaos they cause. So that's being a little overly dramatic. I know the residents have complained about traffic and some people trying to get Instagram selfies and crushing the poppies and whatnot. But for the large part, there's just too much untouched wilderness and surface area here for it all to be damaged. Probably some damage was caused. Surely some litter was left behind and people got bit by rattlesnakes or fell down hillsides or whatever. But overall, I think it's been a great boon for everyone involved. Well, except for those people who got bitten by rattlesnakes, but whatever. So as you can see here, the orange that covers the hillsides is very, very noticeable from a distance, and it used to be much more widespread than this just a week or two ago. So I caught it sort of on the waning end of the Superbloom. It's a great pity I didn't get to come to this area maybe just even a week before. That would have just been amazing. But I still had a very magical experience, and I didn't have 100,000 people or even 10,000 or 1,000 surrounding me to sort of ruin that with just too much noise and too much activity. This guy's flying a drone to take a picture of his girlfriend who was lying amongst the poppies. So there's just a little bit of activity. People are having fun. I wouldn't judge people too harshly. Lake Elsinore is right next to the 15 freeway. There's a lot of traffic passing through on the way to Orange County, LA, and between San Diego. So it's a major thoroughfare for traffic, and people could see the hills ablaze with orange. It was beautiful for about 2 weeks or so. At the time of release of this video, or even by the end of the footage, which was taken on the 31st of March, at the very end of this video, the orange had faded from the hillsides and the massive influx of visitors had stopped. So yeah, social media, Instagram selfies, that's a way for places like this to be put on the map and to get the word out. I'm sure many people just drove on the freeway and thought it was stunning, so they made the special trip, but the local roads were overwhelmed, and there was no way I was going to, deal with that giant circus of 100,000 people per day on the weekends trying to visit all on the freeway. That was just a recipe for disaster, but luckily in any place of natural beauty, if you just drive a little bit further and do some planning, like I don't know if I mentioned, but I saw this beautiful photo of the entire hill range, Lake Elsinore in full bloom. It was a beautiful orange, and I decided to look at the map on Google with terrain, and basically I could figure out what are some different points of entry that I could do, or at least try out to get close to this beauty without suffering through all that traffic. And Lake Elsinore is about an hour away from where I live, so if I try to go all the way to Antelope Valley Poppy Preserve or Carrizo Plain National Monument, which were featured on some specialty flower chasing groups that I'm in on Facebook. Basically those take anywhere from 3+ hours to close to 4.5 for Carrizo Plain. I've seen some amazing pictures from there, and the scale of the bloom is much larger north of LA, but it would just take way too much energy to drive back and forth in one day, especially when I have extenuating circumstances. I'm really busy with work and other things, so I just couldn't make a final trip as of the time I'm making this video, which is April 6th in 2019. I really wish I could, and I don't know how long those blooms are going to last up there, but then I got a vacation, I got some other stuff. I just might not be able to make it for the Superbloom up there north of LA, and I think it's a great pity. Hopefully those places have more regular Superblooms than here. So yeah, around San Diego there's just not that many spots that have Superblooms, because you need a very marginal habitat that's sort of more dry, more like plains. You can't have it covered with thick scrub from the chaparral typical of the California coast, and in the desert you just don't have this density of plants, little weedy things to make an amazing Superbloom. Although there are some very interesting flowers in the desert, I think it didn't actually get as much rain out there in Anza Borrego Desert compared to the coastal lands. So what I noticed is a lot of people in San Diego go to the same basic locations over and over. They might take a trip to Hawaii. Occasionally they might go to the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Certainly a lot of people go to Las Vegas, and I love those places. Actually, I haven't been to Hawaii yet, but once I've seen the main attractions that everyone else has seen, then I don't tend to want to go to the same place over and over again, unless it's a really great place. Paradoxically, the Los Penasquitos Canyon Preserve in San Diego, it's a beautiful place. It's got a great riparian zone, but because it's flat, all the cardiomeisters who think of hikes as some kind of marathoning event, they don't want to go to those places, because when they go to a place they just want to walk up the mountain as fast as possible without resting, and then walk back down as fast as possible. Most people do not enjoy stopping to sniff at the flowers and examine and play with the animal and plant life. That's just not what they do. Most people like to go in groups, and they like to just walk as fast as possible, blaze past the scenery, maybe take some pictures on Potato Chip Rock, and then they just go back, and then they scatter, because in San Diego there's kind of this phenomenon where people feel like to cram maybe a half marathon or an hour of surfing or something like that back after the hike. I like to relax. You can see here somebody crushed, smushed the foliage for a bunch of poppies just to get an Instagram selfie, and there's kind of a similar alignment on the other side of this rock formation. So it seems like maybe a couple laid there and they just used the drone to take an Instagram selfie or something like that. But I saw maybe one or two of those examples. These are remote locations, and most people didn't make their way out here like I did. Most people went for Walker Canyon, and I'm glad I found spots like this, although I was kind of sad that the Superbloom was wrapping up at this point. I wish I had made it out earlier or found these locations just a week or two ago. It would have been amazing. They're still amazing and very serene and beautiful, but not anything like I saw from the photos of aerial views taken maybe just a week or two ago. So that's pretty typical. Like, I think most flowers of various plant species don't last that long. Things being like orchids are the exception and not the rule. But nevertheless, these California poppies do last a long time, and as you could see from all the little clips of video footage in this video, there are still many more blooms coming out, and there's certainly been a lot of shedding, as you can see in this little tiny view, but there's still a lot more flowers on the way. But depending on rainfall, I think most of it's over. Certainly along washes like this, which have already dried up, and gullies and things like that, where rain tends to flow down during storms and collect underground. That's where you get the best blooms, and you've seen that throughout this video. So it's generally the hilltops that have the shortest window, and the gullies, the seasonal stream beds and things like that, places near rocks like these that have the best blooms, the most dense foliage growth and flower growth. And these will be the last places to go. So as you can see in the background, everything's kind of bare, but here you still have this dazzling beauty in the low-lying places. But overall, this is all higher elevation than most of the surrounding area, so water ran off and it ran into seasonal streams. I saw a lot of tadpoles. These poppies are not wind pollinated, so their pollen poses no allergy risk via inhalation, although I generally find myself to be 100% immune to all of these spring pollen allergies that many people are plagued with. So the California poppy leaves are used as food or garnish, while the seeds are used in cooking. This species is drought tolerant, self-seeding, and easy to cultivate. It's best grown as an annual in full sun in sandy, well-drained soil or loam. Maybe I'll try having a growing series on this. I don't know if I'm going to buy seeds yet, or if I'm just going to try to come back to a place like this and just look for a seed pod or something like that. I'm sure seeds will be in massive abundance. So these typically do not breed true on reseeding. There's lots of cultivars. This flower has been introduced probably worldwide by now, and it's very beautiful. It's very easy to see why people get addicted to the California poppy's beauty. So it's just a stunning plant, and it probably grows fairly easily compared to most of the things that I've grown. It has invasive potential actually, but I don't think anyone minds because it's got these blooms that are so beautiful. So it's been introduced into many regions with Mediterranean climates, similar climates. Even in Australia it's just naturalized. And finally I have this beautiful view of a Superbloom in a field. It doesn't take up the whole field, but it's nearby, east of all the other places that I was filming in this video. So I'm going to wrap up this video and Please stay tuned to my YouTube channel. I know normally I have plant growing series, but I just couldn't resist making a video or two about the beauty of the California poppy Superbloom of 2019. Thanks for watching.